Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Thursday, January 30th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside will be mild today with a high of 59.2 degrees and a low of 46.9 degrees Fahrenheit. Coming up, we'll examine the details behind a concerning collision between a military helicopter and a passenger jet in Washington, D.C.'s airspace. Then, we'll explore why utility companies in California are seeing profits above the national average. Finally, we'll analyze the potential effects of Trump's electric vehicle policy rollback and why its impact might not be as significant as expected. All this and more, coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. We begin with breaking news from Washington, D.C., where a devastating mid-air collision has claimed multiple lives. Joining us now with the latest details is our transportation correspondent, Ethan Parker. Ethan, walk us through what happened last night.
Grace, according to multiple sources including the FAA, at approximately 9:00 p.m. Eastern Time last night, American Eagle Flight 5342, operated by PSA Airlines, collided with a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter over the Potomac River near Reagan Washington National Airport. Both aircraft crashed into the river's frigid waters.
What do we know about the passengers and crew aboard these aircraft?
The Washington Post reports that the commercial flight, a Bombardier CRJ-700, was carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members. The military helicopter had 3 U.S. Army personnel aboard. Among the passengers were 2 notable figures: Russian-born world champions Yevgenia Shishkova and Vadim Naumov, both Olympic figure skaters who won the 1994 World Figure Skating Pairs Championship.
What can you tell us about the rescue efforts?
According to local authorities, a massive 300-person emergency response team has been working through the night. The water temperature was reported at 2 degrees Celsius, which severely limited survival chances. So far, they've recovered 28 bodies, and tragically, officials aren't expecting to find any survivors. 1 black box has been retrieved, though rescue teams are battling difficult weather conditions.
How has this affected air traffic in the region?
The Associated Press reports that Reagan National Airport was immediately closed following the incident. 19 aircraft were diverted to Dulles International Airport. This is particularly significant, as it's the first major aircraft collision over the Potomac River in recent history, and it occurred within the Washington, D.C. Flight Restricted Zone, or FRZ, which is supposed to have stringent air traffic control measures.
What's being done at the federal level to address this tragedy?
Multiple high-ranking officials have responded to the crisis. The Pentagon, FAA, and NTSB have all launched investigations. President Trump, Vice President Vance, Transportation Secretary Duffy, Senator Marshall, and D.C. Mayor Bowser have all been briefed on the situation and are closely monitoring developments. The key focus right now is understanding how this could have happened in such tightly controlled airspace.
Thank you, Ethan, for that comprehensive report. We'll be sure to keep our viewers updated as this story develops. We turn now to a story that affects nearly every Californian's wallet. Our business reporter Chloe Martinez is here to break down why California's utility companies are under scrutiny for what some are calling excessive profits. Chloe?
Thanks, Grace. According to recent reporting from Cal Matters, California's 3 major utility companies are facing criticism over their substantial profit margins, which are directly impacting residents' power bills. These baked-in profits, as critics call them, are significantly higher than the national average.
Can you break down exactly how much these utilities are making?
Well, as the Orange County Register has detailed, the 3 major players, Pacific Gas and Electric, Southern California Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric, are currently receiving shareholder returns of around 10%. To be specific, Southern California Edison leads with 10.75%, followed by PG&E at 10.7%, and San Diego Gas and Electric at 10.65%.
How does that compare to utilities in other states?
That's an interesting point, Grace. According to industry data, the national average for electric utilities in the first quarter of 2024 was just 9.66%, with a median of 9.70%. For gas utilities, it's 9.78%. These differences may seem small, but they translate into millions of dollars.
Speaking of millions, what kind of returns did these companies see last year?
The numbers are quite striking. In 2023, PG&E collected over $111 million out of a possible $125 million in shareholder returns. Southern California Edison received $91 million out of $198 million possible, and San Diego Gas and Electric nearly maxed out their potential, collecting $41.9 million of a possible $42 million.
And how is this affecting California consumers?
The impact is significant. California residents are paying some of the highest electricity rates in the continental U.S., averaging 30 to 32 cents per kilowatt hour. To put that in perspective, the national average is just 17.01 cents. Only Hawaii has higher rates at 41.27 cents per kilowatt hour.
What's the utility's response to these concerns?
PG&E spokesperson Mike Gazda has defended these returns, stating that the vast majority are reinvested into the company. However, experts like David Rode and Michael Campbell argue these rates are excessive and that utilities are overstating their business risks. The California Public Utilities Commission is now facing pressure to review these rates, with Governor Newsom calling for increased scrutiny.
Thank you, Chloe, for helping us understand this complex issue. That's Chloe Martinez with our second story of the morning. Here are some other headlines. In a significant policy announcement, former President Donald Trump has revealed plans to utilize Guantanamo Bay as a detention center for immigrants convicted of crimes in the United States. The naval base, which currently houses a small migrant operations center, will be expanded to accommodate tens of thousands of detainees under ICE management. In Washington, Senate confirmation hearings are underway for several high-profile nominees, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and Kash Patel. The hearings are expected to be particularly contentious, with Democratic senators preparing tough questions for the nominees. Former Democratic Representative Tulsi Gabbard's nomination as Director of National Intelligence is drawing attention due to her controversial stances on various issues. Gabbard, who left the Democratic Party in 2022, has previously expressed sympathy for Russia's position on Ukraine and met with Syrian President Bashar Assad in 2017. Her views on government surveillance and foreign policy are expected to face intense scrutiny during the confirmation process. While President Trump's signature communication style remains unchanged, his administration is showing marked differences in its operational approach. New policy initiatives focus heavily on border security, including ending catch-and-release policies and reinstating the Remain in Mexico program. The administration is also prioritizing energy policy reforms and government bureaucracy overhaul, including a selective hiring freeze for federal workers. These developments signal significant shifts in both domestic and foreign policy, with implications for national security, immigration enforcement, and international relations. The outcomes of these confirmation hearings and policy implementations will likely shape the direction of federal governance in the coming months. We turn now to a developing story about potential changes to electric vehicle policies under a Trump administration. Joining us to break this down is our political correspondent Ethan Matthews. Ethan, what can you tell us about these proposed changes?
Thanks, Grace. According to NPR News, former President Trump is making moves to reverse President Biden's electric vehicle initiatives, with his primary target being the 2035 goal of having EVs make up 50% of new vehicle sales. However, it's important to note that any immediate impact from these changes would likely be limited.
Can you explain why the impact might be limited, Ethan?
Well, Grace, there are several factors at play here. First, according to current market data, EVs already represent 10% of U.S. vehicle sales, and consumer interest remains strong, with 29% of new vehicle shoppers expressing serious interest in electric vehicles. But, perhaps more significantly, much of the infrastructure funding is already locked in place.
How much funding are we talking about here?
Based on analysis from Perplexity API, we're looking at substantial numbers. About $2.4 billion has already been unlocked through what's called the NEV Formula Program, and that's expected to reach $3.3 billion with upcoming approvals in 2025. An additional $635 million has been awarded through the CFI program. Once these funds are allocated, they're largely protected without congressional intervention.
What about at the state level? Are there any protections in place?
Yes, that's actually a crucial point. 11 states have already adopted California's stricter emission standards. These include major states like New York, Massachusetts, and New Jersey, along with Oregon, Vermont, and others. This creates a significant market force, regardless of federal policy.
And what about the economic impact? We're hearing a lot about job creation in this sector.
The numbers are quite striking, Grace. According to employment data analyzed by Perplexity API, over 194,600 new EV-related jobs have been announced through 2024. Interestingly, 77% of these jobs are in Republican-represented districts. We're seeing massive investments in states like Georgia with $26.4 billion and 31,600 jobs, Michigan with $22.2 billion, and North Carolina with $20.2 billion.
Thank you for that comprehensive breakdown, Ethan. That was our political correspondent, Ethan Matthews, with story 3 of 3 this morning. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 3.5, the Perplexity API, and the Google Cloud Text-to-Speech API. Hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.